They all laughed when Rachel inherited the crumbling Victorian mansion while her stepbrother got the family fortune. 3 months later, as rain lashed against broken windows, her crowbar cracked through the strange panel in the basement wall, revealing a steel vault door that would change everything. The reading of her father's will felt like a public execution. Rachel sat stiffly in the mahogany-paneled law office, still numb from the funeral, as her stepmother Vivian and stepbrother Marcus exchanged knowing glances across the table. Her father's lawyer, Mr. Hargrove, cleared his throat and adjusted his glasses before reading the document that would sever the last threads of Rachel's world. To my wife, Vivian, I leave my investment portfolio valued at approximately $8 million. To my son, Marcus, I leave the family business, Blackwood Industries, and our primary residence. And to my daughter, Rachel, I leave the old Blackwood property on Sawyers Ridge. The room went silent. Rachel felt her face burn as Vivian's lips curled into what could almost pass for a sympathetic smile. "I'm sorry, dear," Vivian said, voice dripping with false concern. "But your father always said you were the sentimental one. That old place was his grandfather's, after all." Marcus didn't bother hiding his smirk. "Better bring a hard hat when you visit. Last I heard, the roof was one storm away from total collapse." Rachel's hands trembled as she signed the necessary papers. Just 6 months ago, she'd been the marketing director at her father's company. Then came her sudden termination, her apartment's mysterious flooding, the investment scheme that swallowed her savings, and finally her father's unexpected heart attack at 62. Now this, a worthless inheritance, while the family fortune went to the woman who'd married her father just 4 years ago and her son, who joined the company last year. "There is one small addendum," Mr. Hargrove said as Rachel rose to leave. "Your father left this for you as well." He handed her a small brass key attached to a faded leather tag with her name written in her father's distinctive handwriting. "What's it for?" Rachel asked, her voice barely audible. "I'm afraid he didn't specify," Hargrove replied with a shrug. "Just that it was to be given to you along with the deed." Rachel slipped the key into her pocket, refusing to give Vivian and Marcus the satisfaction of seeing her cry. As she reached the door, Vivian called after her. "We're listing the company building for sale next month. Be sure to clear out your father's personal effects from his office by then." "The personal effects that weren't in his will?" Rachel asked. "Anything not specifically mentioned belongs to Marcus now," Vivian replied coolly. "But we're not monsters. Take his photographs if you want them." 3 days later, Rachel's decade-old Honda struggled up the winding mountain road to Sawyers Ridge. Rain pounded the windshield as lightning illuminated the dense forest on either side. Her bank account held just enough for 2 months of survival, and her job applications had yielded nothing but automated rejections. The mansion represented her last option, a roof over her head, even if it was falling apart. The GPS announced her arrival as she rounded a final curve. Rachel killed the engine and stared through the rain at her inheritance. The 3-story Victorian stood against the darkening sky like a wounded animal, its ornate gables sagging and paint peeling away in long, gray strips. The wraparound porch listed to one side, and several windows were boarded over. The once elegant gardens had been consumed by wilderness decades ago. "Home sweet home," she whispered, reaching for the brass key in her pocket. It wasn't for the front door, too small, wrong shape, but it was the only thing her father had deliberately left her. The main door creaked open with a push, its lock long since broken. The smell hit her first, mildew, dust, and something older beneath it all. Rachel shined her flashlight across the grand foyer, revealing water stains tracking down faded wallpaper and a once magnificent staircase now sporting several missing balusters. That night, she slept in her car. The next morning, she began the impossible task of making one room livable. She chose what must have been a study on the first floor. Its smaller windows were intact, and the ceiling showed no obvious water damage. She worked until her muscles screamed, clearing debris, scrubbing decades of grime, and patching what she could with limited supplies from her emergency kit. By the end of the week, Rachel had cleared enough space for a camping mattress and makeshift kitchen using a hot plate. Her cell service was spotty at best, but it was enough to receive another rejection email from a potential employer. She sat on the porch as the sun set, calculating how long her remaining funds would last. Not long enough. You planning to fix this place up, or just squatting till it falls on your head? Rachel jumped at the voice. A man stood at the bottom of the porch steps, arms crossed over a faded work shirt. He was maybe 50, with weathered features and assessing eyes. "I own it," Rachel said defensively. "Who are you?" "Jack Mercer. I do maintenance and construction work around these parts. Your neighbor about 3 miles down the road called, said someone was up here." He gestured at the house. "This place has been empty since old Thomas Blackwood passed. That was, 15 years ago?" "Thomas was my grandfather," Rachel said. "My father just died. He left me this place." Jack's expression softened slightly. "Sorry about your dad. Place needs a lot of work if you're planning to stay. Roof's got at least 3 major leaks, foundations shifted on the north corner, and I wouldn't trust that porch much longer." Rachel laughed bitterly. "I don't suppose you work for exposure and gratitude? Because that's all I've got right now." To her surprise, Jack chuckled. "Tell you what, I'll take a real look around, give you an honest assessment of what needs fixing first. You can pay me when you get on your feet." "Why would you do that?" Rachel asked suspiciously. Jack shrugged. "Thomas Blackwood gave me my first job when I was 17. Said I had good hands. Never forgot that." He glanced up at the mansion. Shamed to see this place fall apart completely. With Jack's help, Rachel learned the house wasn't quite the lost cause it appeared. The structure itself was largely sound, despite the cosmetic horrors. They focused on the essential repairs, patching the worst roof leaks, securing loose floorboards, ensuring the plumbing still functioned in at least one bathroom. "What happened to this place?" Rachel asked as they worked. "My father never talked about it. I didn't even know it existed until the will reading." Jack handed her a hammer. "Story goes that your great-grandfather made his fortune in banking, built this place as a summer home. Then came the crash of '29. Family lost almost everything overnight. They moved away, but kept the property. Your grandfather Thomas moved back here in his later years, lived simply, kept to himself mostly. And my father never lived here? Not that I recall. He'd visit Thomas occasionally, but he was already building his own business by then." Rachel nodded, trying to reconcile this history with the father she knew, a shrewd businessman obsessed with legacy and appearances. Why keep this crumbling mansion? And why leave it to her? That night, a violent storm hit the ridge. Rachel woke to the sound of water gushing somewhere in the house. Grabbing her flashlight, she tracked the noise to the basement door, which she'd previously found locked. Now it stood ajar, with water pouring down the stone steps beyond. Heart pounding, Rachel descended carefully. The basement was larger than she'd expected, with stone walls and a dirt floor now turning to mud. The source of the flood was obvious. A section of the outer wall had partially collapsed, allowing water to pour in from the saturated ground outside. Rachel sloshed through the rising water, searching for anything she could use to block the breach. As her flashlight swept across the far corner, something reflected its beam, a metal edge protruding from the mud. She waded closer and discovered a rectangular outline in the floor, like a trapdoor. The flowing water had eroded the dirt covering it, revealing what appeared to be a metal hatch. Rachel's fingers trembled as she brushed away more mud. There was a small keyhole at the center of the hatch, a keyhole that looked exactly the right size for the brass key her father had left her. Before she could investigate further, the water level rose sharply. Rachel retreated upstairs, blocking the basement door as best she could with towels and buckets. She'd have to wait until morning. The storm passed by dawn, leaving behind a clear sky and a flooded basement. Rachel called Jack, who arrived with a water pump and extra hands, his son Mike, and a local handyman. While they worked to drain the basement, Rachel couldn't stop thinking about the metal hatch and the key burning a hole in her pocket. "Jack, was there ever anything valuable kept in this house?" she asked carefully. He gave her a curious look. "Thomas wasn't wealthy, if that's what you mean. Lived on a small pension as far as I know." "What about before? During my great-grandfather's time?" Jack shrugged. "There were always rumors. old houses like this, people talk. Some said your great-grandfather hid assets here before the crash. Others claimed the house had secret rooms. Rich folks back then sometimes built those for prohibition stashes. By afternoon, the basement was mostly drained. Rachel waited until Jack and the others left before returning to the metal hatch. She knelt in the damp earth and inserted her father's key into the lock. It turned with a solid click. The hatch was heavier than she expected, requiring all her strength to lift. Beneath it, a narrow set of concrete steps descended into darkness. Rachel's flashlight revealed nothing but more stairs vanishing downward. "What did you hide here, Dad?" she whispered, gathering her courage before beginning the descent. 20 steps down, the stairway opened into a corridor with smooth concrete walls, nothing like the rough stone of the basement above. This space was purposefully built, reinforced, and completely hidden from the original house plans. At the end of the corridor stood a vault door, like something from an old bank, and beside it, a modern keypad with a small digital screen displaying a blinking cursor. Rachel stared at the keypad. No instructions, no hint of what combination might open it. She tried her birthday, her father's birthday, the year the house was built. Nothing worked. The system locked after 3 failed attempts, displaying a message. Security protocol engaged. Voice recognition required. A small speaker grill beside the keypad came to life. "Please state the password phrase." Rachel froze. What password? What phrase would her father have chosen? Then she remembered something, a phrase her father would repeat whenever she faced difficulties growing up. Words she'd almost forgotten until this moment. "The storm reveals what sunshine conceals," she said, her voice echoing in the concrete corridor. The screen flashed green. Voice pattern recognized. Rachel Blackwood. Access granted. The vault door unlocked with a series of metallic clicks. Rachel pushed it open to reveal a room approximately 15 feet square. Unlike the corridor, this space was furnished. A desk with a computer setup, filing cabinets along one wall, and shelves containing dozens of labeled storage boxes. On the desk lay a sealed envelope with her name written in her father's hand. Rachel opened it with trembling fingers and unfolded a single page. "Rachel, if you're reading this, then I've died before I could tell you the truth in person. I'm sorry for that and for the distance between us these past years. It wasn't what I wanted, but it was necessary to protect you. Vivian is not who she pretends to be. She and her son approached me 3 years ago with evidence of financial irregularities at Blackwood Industries, evidence they threatened to take to the authorities. What they didn't know was that I was already aware of the fraud being committed within my company. I've spent the last 4 years documenting everything in this vault. The login information for the computer is on the back of this letter. Everything you need to understand and to protect yourself is there. Trust no one except Jack Mercer. He doesn't know specifics, but he's kept an eye on the property for me for years. Remember what I always told you. The storm reveals what sunshine conceals. Now the storm has come. Be careful, be smart, and know that I've always loved you. Dad." Rachel sank into the desk chair, mind reeling. She flipped the letter over and found the login credentials, then powered up the computer. What she discovered over the next 3 hours changed everything she thought she knew about her family's company and her father's death. The files revealed a sophisticated embezzlement scheme that had been operating within Blackwood Industries for nearly 5 years. The architect wasn't her father, as Vivian had claimed to the board of directors. It was Marcus himself, who had worked at the company under a different name for years before being introduced as Vivian's son. The documentation was meticulous. Bank transfers, altered records, offshore accounts, and most damning of all, evidence suggesting her father's heart attack may not have been natural. Rachel worked through the night, copying files to secure drives, organizing evidence, and formulating a plan. By morning, she understood why she'd been given this crumbling mansion. It was the only place her father could be certain Vivian and Marcus wouldn't search. They thought it worthless, just as they thought she was. She called Jack first thing, asking him to come immediately. When he arrived, she showed him the vault and explained the situation. "I need someone I can trust," she finished. "Dad said that was you." Jack studied the evidence soberly. Your father came to me about a year ago, asked me to keep an eye on this place, said someday it might be important. Never said why. He looked up at her. What's your next move? I can't go to the police directly, Rachel said. Vivian has connections in the department. It's all documented here. But there's a federal investigator Dad was working with. I need to reach her. With Jack's help, Rachel established secure communication with Special Agent Diana Chin, who had been building a case against multiple financial fraud operations in the region. The evidence from the vault was exactly what she needed to move forward with charges against Marcus and Vivian, but only if they could be caught with the original falsified documents. They're planning to sell the company headquarters, Rachel told Agent Chin. They'll need to remove or destroy any remaining evidence first. We need them caught in the act, Chin confirmed. Can you draw them out? Rachel smiled grimly. Oh, I think I can manage that. The next day, Rachel called Marcus from the landline at the mansion, making sure to sound distressed. I found some old company papers in the basement, she told him. Dad must have stored them here years ago. There's something weird about them. Dates that don't match up, signatures that look different. Don't touch anything, Marcus said sharply. Those are company documents. They belong to me now. I already took them to a lawyer in town, Rachel lied. He said they looked suspicious. What lawyer? What's his name? Marcus demanded. Why does it matter? Unless you're worried about something? Listen to me very carefully. Marcus lowered his voice. Those papers are worthless, probably just drafts. Bring them to the house tomorrow, and I'll give you $20,000. Cash. No questions asked. $50,000, Rachel countered. Fine, Marcus snapped. Just don't show them to anyone else. The trap was set. Rachel spent the day working with Agent Chin and her team, preparing the mansion for what would come. Hidden cameras were installed, recording devices placed strategically, and federal agents positioned in the surrounding woods. Jack and his son helped, ensuring every exit was covered while remaining invisible to anyone approaching the house. As dusk fell, Rachel waited in the study, a folder of documents on the desk before her. Carefully selected copies from the vault that would appear damning but revealed only a fraction of what she knew. The brass key hung on a chain around her neck, tucked beneath her shirt. Headlights swept across the windows as a vehicle approached. Rachel took a deep breath and steadied herself. Footsteps crossed the porch, and then the front door opened without a knock. Marcus entered first, followed by Vivian, both dressed incongruously well for the dilapidated surroundings. Rachel, darling, Vivian called out. Are you here? In the study, Rachel answered. They entered with false smiles that dropped the moment they saw the documents on the desk. Those the papers? Marcus asked, eyeing the folder. Rachel nodded. I made copies. Vivian's elegant composure slipped. Where are the copies? Somewhere safe. Marcus laughed coldly. Look at you trying to play games. You have no idea what you're dealing with. Actually, I think I do, Rachel said, opening the folder. Falsified board minutes, backdated transfers, forged signatures, including Dad's. It's all here. Your father was careless, Vivian said, dropping all pretense. He let the company become vulnerable. We simply took advantage. By stealing millions? By taking what we deserved, Marcus countered, moving closer. Frank Blackwood was a fraud. His success was built on luck and connections, not skill. We just redistributed the wealth more appropriately. And his heart attack? Rachel asked quietly. Was that appropriate too? A flicker of something, surprise, alarm, crossed Vivian's face. Your father died of natural causes, did he? Because his medical records show he had no previous heart issues. But he did have unusual levels of digitoxin in his system. Fascinating, since he wasn't prescribed any heart medications. You're in over your head, Rachel, Marcus said, his hand moving toward his jacket pocket. We came here to help you, offer you a fresh start. But if you're going to make accusations... I'm not making accusations, Rachel said calmly. I'm stating facts. Facts backed up by 4 years of evidence my father collected in a vault beneath this house. The color drained from Vivian's face. What vault? The one you never knew about. The reason he kept this worthless mansion. Rachel stood. He knew what you were doing, Vivian. He was building a case. These papers? They're just copies. The originals plus everything else, the offshore accounts, the shell companies, the tampering with his medication, it's all been delivered to the FBI. Marcus lunged forward, grabbing Rachel's arm. You're lying. Federal agents. The shout came from outside as Agent Chen and her team burst through the doors, weapons drawn. Hands where we can see them. The next moments passed in a blur of activity. Marcus and Vivian were cuffed and read their rights. Agent Chen confirmed that their search warrant for the Blackwood estate had already yielded additional evidence. Rachel watched in silence as they were led away. Vivian's composed mask finally shattered, Marcus cursing threats until a car door slammed shut on his voice. We'll need your full statement, Agent Chen told Rachel afterward. But the evidence you provided gives us more than enough for charges of fraud, embezzlement, and possibly homicide. You did good work. My father did the work, Rachel corrected her. I just finished what he started. 3 months later, Rachel stood on the newly repaired porch of the Blackwood mansion, watching as Jack and his crew installed restored windows across the facade. The house was coming back to life room by room. With the company assets unfrozen and the truth about her father's death established, Rachel had not only reclaimed her inheritance, but was now the majority shareholder of Blackwood Industries. The board had voted unanimously to appoint her as acting CEO, a position she accepted with the condition that Jack's construction company be contracted to restore the mansion to its former glory. It would become a dual residence and retreat center for company leadership training. As twilight settled over the ridge, Rachel held her father's brass key, now mounted in a glass display case that would hang in the renovated foyer. The vault below remained, its contents secure but no longer secret. The storm reveals what sunshine conceals, she murmured, repeating the words that had guided her through darkness. She turned to watch the sunset painting the old house in golden light, no longer a worthless inheritance, but a symbol of truth revealed and justice served. The storm had passed, and in its wake, Rachel Blackwood had found not just a vault of evidence, but her own strength, her father's true legacy, and finally, a place to call home. If this story of betrayal, hidden truths, and ultimate justice moved you, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more riveting tales of inheritance mysteries. Share with someone who appreciates a good family conspiracy unraveled, and leave a comment telling us what you think was the most satisfying moment of Rachel's journey to justice.